This is my well-worn copy of Watership Down by Richard Adams. It has a price on the back. 95 pence. It's almost certainly older than I am. In this book, Richard Adams asks the question, what's it like to be a rabbit? Or at least more like a rabbit than a human? The issues they face are specific to rabbits. The fear of predation, and the devastation of their environment. So, why am I talking about a more than 50-year-old novel? Well, in 2021, Tim Roberts asked a similar question. Would you like to be like a crow? And the answer was a resounding yes. And the game was funded in under 2 hours. Then, in 2023, they asked, would you like to be like a cat? And the follow-up was funded in less than 10 minutes. The key phrase here is like a cat. Not a cat person, but more like a cat than a person. There are plenty of games where you can, if you choose, play as a cat person, like the Tabaxi in Dungeons & Dragons, or the Rai Neko in Break. But Be Like a Cat asks you to see the world specifically through the eyes of a cat, and experience it in ways unique to cats. And just like you can't tell the story of Watership Down by replacing the rabbits with humans, you can't tell the stories you'll generate in Be Like a Cat by replacing the cats. The physical book is quite an elegant little hardback, and as optional extras I got this territory tracker pad and a set of paw print dice. The art in the book is adorable. It's littered with these simple yet stylish illustrations. They're not all drawn specifically for the book, but they're well utilised to fit the overall style. There's a slight quirkiness to the design, like a deadpan comedian. At first glance it's all suit and tie, but inside, it's cats in space. Be Like a Cat is a kind of hex crawl but with squares instead of hexes. It involves generating and populating your cat's world as you move through it by rolling on a table to see what you find in each square of your map. It's quite structured. Each turn you decide whether to move, and then if the square is blank, you generate the location. So for example, it might say you find 1d6 large houses. You roll the dice and draw in that many houses. Next, you roll for an encounter, which usually takes the form of a creature that occupies that square. And then you roll to see if there's anything else of interest, what the game calls a yes and. Once you've generated the scene, decide what your cat wants to do here. And you find out what happens with skill checks. Your cat has 16 separate skills, from prowling to preening, each with a number associated. So, say you want to hide from a big scary creature like a human. You roll that number of dice next to your prowl skill. A 4 and above is a success. A 1 is a negative success, and a 6 counts as 2 successes. You total the number of successes and check on this table to see how well hidden you are. There's a simple combat system for when your cat inevitably gets into scraps. And of course, there's the zoomies. If you roll 2 6s on a skill check, it doesn't matter what you are doing, you get an immediate burst of energy and run off somewhere else. The game starts by creating a kitten from one of 3 backgrounds: feral, stray, or domestic, each with bonuses and weaknesses. You then turn to the 16 skills and pick some to develop. The book encourages you to write about how your kitten developed these skills. Did they learn to hunt by chasing butterflies? Did they develop their cuteness by manipulating humans? You then enter the young adult life stage and pick a starting location on your map. Apart from kitten, there are 3 life stages that essentially act like levels, improving your skills as you progress. The game gives you a flowchart for how to play out the next stages, though at this point, before you start, you need to know what scenario you're playing. The default scenario is the most down-to-earth. It's about exploring a town or a city and controlling your territory. You record the important events in your cat's life as they drive out their rivals and expand their area of control. This might sound a bit silly, but story-wise, it reminds me of gangster movies like Scarface, a young gun coming into the city with big dreams, then growing their empire until they're the biggest fish in the pond. That's just the default scenario though. If you're feeling more adventurous, the book has 4 others for you, at various levels of weird. First off, there's Brave New World, which is a cyberpunk story where you play the digital avatar of a robot cat recently given free will and working for a group of hackers in an online heist. You explore a virtual corporate building seeking out fragments of data using augmentations and cheat codes that you find along the way. Next, there's the Book of Bastet, where, following a vision from Ra, your ancient Egyptian cat descends into the catacombs beneath the temple of Ramses II to rescue their sister. It has extra rules for curses and boons, and a final encounter. Then there's Starpause, where, after being abandoned on a space station, your cat needs to use all their wits and resources to escape an alien invasion. You'll need to manage your oxygen as you go on spacewalks outside the station and learn to maneuver in microgravity. And finally, a perfect storm, where the pirate ship's cat sets sail on their own adventure, collecting doubloons that form fragments of a treasure map to bring back to their captain. Once again, it's really nice to see a 2-page spread on 2-player modes. You can actually play cooperatively or competitively, so there's even potential PvP involved here, if you're into that kind of thing. And new scenarios are clearly the main way of expanding the game. The book very helpfully gives you a guide for creating your own. Now, I had a brief look around, and I didn't find anyone sharing their homebrew scenarios though, sadly. In the urban scenario, the main progression comes from driving rival cats out of their territory and claiming it for yourself. However, cats are actually quite social animals and are quite good at sharing their territory and forming communities. The social needs of cats, I think, are often overlooked in media, and so I would have liked to see that aspect represented a bit more in the game. Be Like a Cat is a silly game, hidden inside a well-presented wrapper. I realise that might sound derogatory, but I really don't mean it in a bad way. I mean that the game didn't click for me until I embraced that inherent silliness. The game recommends starting with the urban scenario, but I didn't quite get it until I tried the cyberpunk scenario, where my cybercat Hendrix ran with a data thief rat called Ermintrude, who would occasionally be visited by the avatar of his wife. We met a grumpy crow and a forlorn but friendly human hacker who gave us cheat codes as we explored a virtual lab. And that, I think, is where the game shines. You can, if you wish, run a long and serious campaign, connecting multiple map sheets together as your cat advances in age and experience. Alternatively, you can don your mirror shades and fight cyber chihuahuas in a short dungeon crawling adventure. The choice really is yours. Thanks ever so much for watching. I got some really encouraging feedback from the previous video, and that was a real boost to continue the series. A few people told me that they actually bought the game after watching the For Small Creatures Such As We video. On the one hand, I'm really happy for them and happy that it helped bring some attention to a small creator. On the other hand, I know this is a tiny and very niche corner of the internet, but I can't help but think about my responsibilities as a critic. These videos aren't adverts for games, and they're not a comprehensive critique either. They're about my experience in finding the joy in a book. And if that's clear, and if it's helpful to both creators and consumers, then I'm glad. Oh, and thanks to my co-star for this video, Drift. He's one of my 3 cats who came purring as soon as I plugged the microphone in, so I just let it record. Thank you again, and if you enjoyed this review, please do subscribe. I have some more games in my queue, but I'd really like to hear your suggestions too. Until next time, happy adventures.